Welcome to Kev's Travel Stories. Each week I'll be bringing you a story from the weird and wonderful world of travel, a world that can change the way you see life and love and even the way we find meaning. Places that are iconic and sometimes surprising and even terrifying. So sit back and enjoy while we go on a magical mystery tour together. Welcome to Kevin's Travel Stories, and this is a very exciting story. I was invited to eat at the world's best restaurant. I kid you not. This wasn't just made up by any old person as being a great eatery. This was voted by all the great chefs and critics around the world and was, in 2005, voted the world's best restaurant. It knocked off Adrian Ferran's El Bulli, which was a legendary 3 Michelin star restaurant just outside of Barcelona, and it became the talk of the culinary world. Yes, I'm talking about Heston Blumenthal's The Fat Duck, a name that is almost legendary now. But I was so lucky, being the editor of the Fine Wine and Food Guide, I was invited along. We actually had a all access, and on that day, we actually met Heston Blumenthal, and I got to see the genius and the magic behind what became the most legendary restaurant in this part of the world. Now, let me describe the setting. The restaurant is in a small village of Bray, just outside Windsor, which is a good hour and a half's drive from London. It is a small house, the Fat Duck. It's been refurbished since, but in 2006, when I went, it was the talk of the town. The previous week, Tony Blair and Tom Hanks had been eating there, and it was later revealed to me by Heston, who I was lucky enough to meet, that Tony Blair had tried other times to get in, but because it was only very small at the time, just 24 seats, I believe, in this little sort of townhouse, that him and other stars, Robert De Niro, Barbara Streisand, they couldn't actually get a table. Well, we were lucky enough to have a table. Myself and my photographer, Nick, we arrived, we were greeted by Heston and taken over to his lab, which was in a little house down the road. And here he showed us why the Fat Duck was the greatest restaurant in the world. Let me set the scene for you. We are in the lab. This is where molecular gastronomy really kicked off. Heston, who had spent some of his years as a debt collector and was a very, very good advocate of martial arts, so you wouldn't mess with Heston, but he had become obsessed with the science of food, the molecular science of food, and so he created the real flavors, the real textures, the real essence of the food, and some magic along with it. So we had our chat. I did a short interview with him, and he showed us what he was working on at the time, which turned out to be one of his most iconic dishes, the seashell dish, where you actually listen to a conch or you listen to the sounds of the sea while eating your seafood, and there's sand on the plate which you can actually eat. So this gives you a little flavour of where we were going. We were taken over the road for lunch. This was a 22-course tasting menu at an enormous price. I think now it's nearly approaching 400 sterling to eat there, if you can get a seat. And it's very, very difficult, as we have seen. So we were taken in. We looked at the small kitchen at the back, which was no bigger than a front living room. All the magic was created here. And then we were introduced to the sommelier. Now, the sommelier gave me a secret, which if you listen to the end of this, you will share a secret from the sommelier from the 3 Michelin star, The Fat Duck. So hang on till the end, and you're in for a secret as to how to open champagne. Yes, that's for the very end. One of my favourite tipples. So we were sat down by the sommelier, and he, with a great flourish, introduced the first of our 22 dishes. Now, this was a little amuse-bouche. It was very, very interesting as it arrived. Let me set you the scene. There's 5 other tables. There's very, very excited customers. Some of them are famous. Some of them are just famous for actually being allowed to turn up and try Heston's magic. We took our place. Nick had his camera. We caused a bit of a stir because Nick was getting up and he was taking photos and he was going into the kitchen. And it was really very exciting, I have to say. The first course was 2 little jellies. I kid you not. One, and the dish was called peppermint and raspberry. That's it. I looked at it and I thought, this is a bit underwhelming. I picked up the peppermint, the green jelly, put it in my mouth. Raspberry exploded on my taste buds. Suddenly, I was knocked back. So this is the magic. And of course, I picked up the peppermint and raspberry. It was this way of turning things on its head, of suddenly destabilizing you and your whole preconceptions of food, which was so wonderful. Well, course came after course. We had some iconic dishes. We had, for example, we had the moss dish, where moss came out with eggs on it and this dry ice. Extraordinary theatre as the chef came to the table with this dish and presented it to you. We also had the infamous bacon and egg ice cream. Now, I have to say, I couldn't stomach this. Let me describe what's on the dish. It exactly looks like a piece of bacon that's been well fried and an egg. But it's ice cream, and it tastes exactly like bacon and eggs. It was nauseous-making. But the miracle of the whole thing, what was called, near the end, I got a glass of what was termed hot and cold tea. Now, they came along with a flourish. They put the hot and cold tea in front of me, which was a tumbler, a glass tumbler. They said, drink it straight away. I lifted it to my lips and started to drink. And I kid you not, the right-hand side of the drink, there was no divider. The right-hand side of the drink was warm and the left-hand side was cold. How did they do this? I can let you into a little secret. I was later told how this miracle happened, and I also will reveal that secret at the end of this podcast. So on and on it went, dish after dish, and they were paired with wines. And the sommelier came up and took us up to this incredible wine selection upstairs with your Mouton Rothschilds and your Petrus and your Le Pen. It was really the very, very height. Now, we spent 3.5 hours, I think, in total, eating the various dishes, drinking the wine, going back and forward to the kitchen to take photos, having a quick chat with Heston, just taking in the mad atmosphere. Everybody, it was like Christmas morning, Christmas for grown kids, basically. And we were so excited. Each dish followed each dish. You could hear ums and you could hear ahs. We were 3 Michelin star luxury and the best restaurant voted worldwide. Heston actually changed the way we approach cooking. There is not a chef alive today that does not owe him a huge debt because of the way he's gone and unlocked the essence of food through this molecular gastronomy. So at the very, very end, we sat back, pushed the plate away, and could hardly move. The experience was overwhelming almost, because each dish was no bigger than something you could hold in the palm of your hand, but it exploded with these different flavors. The seafood had the taste of the sea, the smell of the sea, the sudden surprises, whether it was the ice cream, which was actually tasting of bacon and eggs, and of course the miracle of the tea. And so that was a story that really made everyone completely jealous that we'd been to this restaurant, which was almost impossible to get into. Now, I want to share the 2 secrets that I learnt. Firstly, how did he make the tea hot on one side and cold on the other? Well, before they delivered the tea to you, they had a small gel that became like osmosis in the water. They put a card down the middle, and they put hot water in one and cold water in the other. And just before they delivered it to you, like a magician, they lifted the little divider. And because there was a slight gel which was invisible and didn't taste of anything, it held the heat just long enough for you to get this sensation of one liquid, but half of it was hot and the other side was cold. Quite miraculous. Finally, the sommelier came down with a bottle of champagne, and he showed us how to actually open it without losing your eyesight. Apparently, over 100 people lose their eyesight in France each year because people don't open a champagne bottle correctly, and the cork leaves the bottle at the same speed as a bullet. So you take off the foil and you have a cradle there, which is made of wire. There are 6 turns to the cradle. Turn that, and then the trick is to leave the cradle on. Now take a tea towel, place it over the cradle, which is over the cork, and use the cradle to slowly turn, grabbing the bottom of the bottle, twist the bottle, and slowly the cork will come away, and they say it should be like the sigh of a lady as the champagne is opened. So that's what I had. That was the experience, meeting Heston Blumenthal, eating where the great and the good from around the world came, and being blown away by these extraordinary dishes which made this the best restaurant in the world. And what a meal to remember.